So let's start. Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to a new webinar by the Global Plan Council, co-organized this time by the International Working Group for Safe Cassava. My name is Isabel Mendoza and I'm the Chief Communication Officer for the Global Plan Council. And today we will learn about cassava consumption and early child neurodevelopment from Espérance Kashala-Abotnes. Sorry if I butchered the name. Associate Professor of the University of Bergen in Norway, who is connecting from Canada today. And we are also joined by Ros Gleadow and Kira Maha from the Monash University in Australia. And very briefly, I will start by sharing a little bit about the Global Plan Council. This will be brief. Just be patient. As I said, today we will learn about cassava consumption and early child neurodevelopment. And the webinar will be recorded. Normally we also stream via YouTube, but this is not a possibility today. So it will take a little more time than usual for this webinar to be available on our YouTube channel. So very briefly about the Global Plant Council, we are a global organization of plant science organizations. We work to raise awareness about the importance of plant science for society. And we also work building a community and a sense of community for this said plant scientist and plant science organization, and we aim to be a voice of reference for this community. We are available and findable, easily findable online. We have a website that I hope you already know by now, and we are also online and present in the most mainstream social media platforms, and soon we will present in even more social media platforms. You can visit our website. You have here the URL, and also we are, as I said, in many of the social media platforms as Global Plan GPC. That's our most common user. What we do. This is very just bullet points of some things that we do currently. We were showcasing the latest plant science research via our website and social media networks. We published every week, some every almost every day, a new plant science story about the latest plant research for everyone to know and learn, showcasing. And then we also host the Early Career Researcher International Network that helps early career researchers on plant science showcase their work on our blog, but also find their newest their next job and next grant via resources that we post on our website and social media. Of course, we also issue policy and position statements representing the interest and showcasing the interest of the plant science community in the global arena. And I was as fast as I could because I want to leave the floor to the experts today, and I first will leave the floor to Ros Gleadow, who is representing the International Network for Safe Cassava. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. So I'm Ros Gleadow. I'm a professor of plant science at Monash University in Australia, and I have been doing research on cassava for about 20 years, looking primarily at the effect of environmental stress on the amount of cyanogens that cassava produces. And through this interest, I connected with other people working on cassava, or I kept reading about all these scientists who were looking about all these other effects of eating too much cassava and cyanide in cassava and the effect on human health. Now, 20 years later, this has led to the formation, very early in the morning where I am. This has led me to work with others to establish the International Working Group for Safe Cassava. And the aim of this group is to look at how we can use this fabulous crop, which has high productivity, for without the harmful effects of cyanide on human health. Which brings me to, so last time we talked in these webinars, we talked to Dr. Julie Cliff, who was one of the people who really originally made these discoveries connecting cyanide and cassava and a particular disease called Konzo. And today it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Espérance Kashala-Abotnes. She's a founding member of the International Cassava Safe Cassava Working Group. And she's very different, not a plant scientist at all. But that's the beauty of this group, is that we bring together of people of many different disciplines because it's a multifaceted problem. Dr. Espérance Kashala-Abotnes is a highly accomplished physician, a specialist in neuropsychiatry. She obtained her medical degree and specialization at the University of Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She told me she spent part of her childhood in Belgium, so she's been around. Following her medical specialization in psychiatry, she did a PhD at the University of Bergen with under Torkild Tesselor, who himself did his PhD with Hans Rosling in Sweden. And so there's a long legacy of cassava research. She's currently a staff psychiatrist at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario in Ottawa in Canada. Dr. Kashala-Abotnes has extensive experience in psychiatry, public health and research, working across diverse international settings, including Norway, the DRC, Singapore, Canada. And her groundbreaking work has focused on the neurological impact of dietary toxins, including the cyanide in cassava and the exposure in children. She's led and collaborated innovative research projects aimed at mitigating cognitive and neurodevelopment impairments caused by toxic cassava consumption in sub-Saharan Africa. Dr. Kashala-Abotnes is also Associate Professor at the University of Bergen, where she continues to advance global mental health and child neurodevelopmental research. So after that, I could have talked for about 20 minutes at least on this background of Espérance, because she's very highly accomplished. But I think at this point, I'll pass over to you, Espérance, because it's all about you and not about me, and invite you to share your slides, give a talk. The format will be you give your talk. There's a Q&A section where you can ask questions, and there's also a chat where you can put things in. This will be moderated by Isabel and also Kira Ma, who is the professional support for the International Cassava Safe Working Group, Safe Cassava Working Group, and Kira may be able to add some extra things to the chat if we need to post references or anything else that might come up. So over to you, Espérance.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can everybody see the presentation? Yes, okay. Just to correct, Isabella, and I'm not a professor associate at the University of Bergen, not anymore. I'm at the University of Kinshasa. So the presentation today is about how cassava consumption can affect early child neurodevelopment, and it was a study which we conducted in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Oh, doesn't move. I need the next slide. Yeah. It was a project which was funded by the Research Council of Norway in collaboration with different institutions. So the University of Kinshasa, the University of Bergen, the Michigan State University, and Oregon Health and Science University in the US. The main objective of the present project was to study the neurocognitive profile of young children affected by Konzo, which is a foodborne disease. And also we wanted to illuminate the impact of nutrition, or in this case, cassava neurotoxicity, on the children cognition. And also we wanted to enhance capacity building, the clinical and neuropsychological research in DRC, and to develop a rationale to address strategies to improve child mental health in sub-Saharan Africa. So before I go into the project, I will just give a brief definition of Konzo, which is a neurological disease affecting mostly the upper motor neuron. The onset of the disease is very abrupt, and it is a symmetrical para or tetraparesis. To illustrate the disease, we have different type or level of affection, how the people are affected with the disease. When they are mildly affected, they are still able to walk, of course, with challenges. Those moderately affected can still walk, but they need a stick, a support. And those who are severely affected are unable to walk. So we can see it in the pictures. And on the right side, we can see adults who are affected by the disease, two mothers. There are many African countries which are affected, but most of them are the Mozambique, Tanzania, Cameroon, Central Africa, Angola, and in the case of the present study, it's the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. I don't think we will have a time to watch the movie which Dr. Kilt made about Konzo, but for those who would like to, the movie is available on YouTube. What are the causes of Konzo? I mean, it's up to date, it is unknown, but we know it is multifactorial. There are a lot of factors which play into the development of the disease. We found that women of a younger age and those who are still breastfeeding are more vulnerable to develop the disease. And also malnutrition has a big impact, and there is also a genetic component. For this present project, we were wondering if there was an association between the Konzo and the cyanide poisoning coming from the cassava, which is a staple food in this population. We know that cassava can be eaten in different forms. Some people just eat the leaves. Some will make a flour and cook a type of cassava bread, which we call ugali. I mean, the name varies from place to place in Africa. But before eating, it is very important to detoxify the cassava. And one way of detoxifying the cassava is to soak it in the water so that it will be proper for the consumption. Previous research have shown that exposure to cyanide from cassava has led to neurological symptoms. It has also led to neuropsychological deficiencies, and also in some cases we know we have ecological causes which links the chronic consumption of poly cassava to undernutrition. So there are a lot of factors which have been studied and shows how consumption of improperly processed cassava can affect the health of the people living in those communities who have cassava as a staple food. So those are different pictures of kids living in affected area in Congo. Some of the results, as I mentioned, the studies which have been done on neuropsychological sequela have found that people who have Konzo and who have been eating improper processed cassava will have more fine motor difficulties, problem with the manual dexterity, with the coordination, even with their balance and the speed and agility. And so there are different studies which shows how they suffer. Even in memory, when it comes to cognition for the elder kids affected, they will have difficulty with planning, with reasoning, with memories. So there are different research available with that. When it comes to our study, we thought that different research have shown how adults and older kids have had impact from the exposure to cassava, which is not properly processed. So we ask ourselves, is the cassava or the fact that they are ingesting bitter cassava can lead to other deficiency, neurological, neurocognitive, or even motor impairment in younger kids? Can it affect also their cognition or their early development? And that's why we conduct the study to explore if there is a possible association between exposure to cassava or to cyanide in the cassava and early child neurodevelopment. So the study was conducted in the DRC, which is a big country in Central Africa. It's the second largest African country with an estimated population of more than 80 million. The study was conducted in Kahemba, which is close to Angola. It's about 1,000 kilometers from the capital city, Kinshasa, and the access to the area is very, very challenging. In a good, if we have good roads, we can reach the area in 5, 6 hours, but unfortunately, the place is very difficult to access, so it takes 1 to 2 days before you can reach the area from the capital city. So what are the methods used to assess early child neurodevelopment? We choose different type of scales. The Mullen scale of early learning is a scale which looks into cognition of young children aged 0 to 68 months. We use also what is called the Gensini-Gavito scale, which has been validated in the DRC. We use the 10 questionnaire. It's a questionnaire which has been validated by WHO and can assess how the child is reaching the different milestones. In addition to those tests and scales, we did a clinical and neurological examination of all the children who were involved in the studies, and we measure also their height, weight. I mean, we took anthropometric measurement. For parents, we conduct a clinical interview to get information about pregnancy, birth, milestones, the family environment, the parenting style, and also maternal depression or anxiety. And also to look at the exposure of cyanide from the cassava they are consuming. We measure the level of thiocyanate and cyanide in the household cassava flour and also in the urine of the mother and the children. So those are pictures of the different tests we have been conducted. You can see there are small girls performing some of the cognitive tests. And on the top left, one of the researchers conducting the interview with the mother. What were the results? When we look into the level of thiocyanate in the child and the mother's urine, they were very high. So the mean in the urine was about 600 for the children and about 819 for the mothers, while the cutoff value from WHO is 300. So they were even more the double of what is the value acceptable by WHO. And when we looked at the content in the flour they used to cook the food at home, it was a mean of 50, which is 5 times higher than the acceptable uh, um, dose, which is 10. So we can see that children and mother had a very high level of thiocyanate in the urines and of cyanogen in the cassava flour they were using in the household. So we found that exposure to cyanogen from cassava was associated to early child development when we used the Mullen scale, to motor and neurocognitive abilities. All the kids were really affected when it comes to their early child neurodevelopment. We also found that mothers reported very high depressive symptoms and anxiety. And also we found that the early child development was also strongly associated to the child linear growth, which was a sign of stunting. So there is an undernutrition component which affects also early child development. So the exposure to cassava not only affect the early child development, but it affects also the child nutrition and the mental health of the mothers. So based on our findings, we wanted to continue with some interventional studies because the populations in those areas are in need of a good management. So we applied for funds from Grand Challenge Canada, and we conducted an intervention to improve early child development and condition of those children. And it was still in collaboration with the University of Kinshasa and the Ministry of Health. So the project title was Training Caregivers to Enhance Early Child Neurodevelopment in Prevention of Konzo from Toxic Cassava in the DRC. And which intervention we use, it's called the mediational intervention for sensitizing caregiver. What it does, the intervention looks at the social emotional health and the cognitive development. It has been used in less in the country with low income, okay, and they use the component of the daily life. So they use parents to help with the daily component of their life to improve the child cognition, and also empower parents to be able to provide to their kids. And when you look at this intervention, it used very basic element of mediation, which is regulating. We learn the child how he can regulate the emotion, rewarding when a child has a behavior, how we can reward so that the child can expand and continue using that behavior. Expansion by explaining to the children. I will give some example. Giving, meaning, focusing. And there are very few basic messages which we teach parents to use with their kids to improve their cognition. It's like, you can do it. I'm here with you. We are safe. I love you. You are bright. And for the affect, we use a lot of smiles to the kids, eye contact, sharing of joy. So we use component of daily life. And here it's a picture of a mom who is washing cloth with the child. And by washing the cloth, we see on the picture that the child is holding a soap. The mom can use that opportunity to teach the child, this is the soap, we use it for cleaning clothes. And that's how the child will acquire some new informations, and it will improve his cognitions and his neurodevelopment. So we use all the activities of daily life, feeding, bathing, playing, to help mothers teaching their kids so that we can promote their cognitions and early child neurodevelopment. Please ask questions if you have. So this is a graduation day which we had after the training. So we train local people to be able to train the parents and the caregivers. So after the training, so that's the picture we took. The preliminary result from that intervention shows that we have managed to reduce depressive symptoms among the mothers. And I guess because they felt empowered to be able to contribute to the development or the well-being of their children. We managed to reduce exposure to cyanogen content in the cassava because they started using another method, which is called the wetting method, to detoxify the cassava. We improved neurocognition outcomes of the kids, and we have expanded this intervention in neighboring villages, and we have applied for funds from NIH to continue with the intervention. It's a very cheap intervention, culturally acceptable, and can be used by anybody without any special training. So there are different challenges in addressing mental health in Africa. We know marginalization, undernutrition, poverty, lack of resources, lack of trained professional. And this is an example of how we were training those mothers under the tree because there is no infrastructure to have proper training, but it's still possible. And we can see how they are happy and enjoying the training. Yeah. To summarize, we see that exposure to cyanogen from improper detoxified cassava affect early child development and cognition, affect also mental well-being of the mothers and the child growth. It is very important to identify protective factors such as empowering women to be able to prevent the progression of the disease and to be able to use proper detoxified cassava. And we need to strengthen community for the prevention. To conclude, I will say exposure to cyanogen from cassava is associated with impaired early child neurodevelopment and cognition. We need to promote preventing measures. Breastfeeding and nutrition can be protective factors, and maternal mental health or parental involvement are very important to promote opportunities to improve early learning and cognitive stimulation in areas where people are exposed to the cyanogen contained in the cassava. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you very much. That's terrific. If people could please put their questions in the Q&A down the bottom, and then we can move on to that. Just so that was really interesting. In the chat, Kira has put in a link to the video by Torkild that you mentioned, so people can follow that up, and also a link to your article. A couple of other people have put in some articles which are great. Yeah, so there's lots of congratulations coming in through the chat, so that's really good. I'll kick off with the first question. I have several, but the first one is, I was interested that the flour that the people were using to make the ugali was about 50 parts per million, which is 5 times the recommended level, but not nearly as high as you would get in, say, a time of drought or something like that. And I'm wondering what else people were eating, or was it partly because was it a monotonous cassava diet, or did they have a diverse diet?
And that's
Were they
one
eating
of
other
the
things?
yeah, that's one of the challenge. People, because they have undernutrition because their diet lacks proteins. they eat mostly cassava, flour de ugali. They can eat the cassava leaves. Uh, and when they eat proteins, usually it's not animal proteins. And even if they have, it will be very little. So it's not a balanced diet. And that's why we think that one of the contributing factors is the undernutrition because of the lack of um, balanced diet. They are more susceptible because they lack animal proteins.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so well, I pass to you, Isabel, for any other questions that are coming up. There's one in the chat and there's one in the Q&A, so we can go from there.
Yes, maybe we start with the one in the chat, in the Q&A by Monique Sani. So, with all the available information from Roslyn and team on Konzo, what nutritional intervention has been put in place to stem the tide of this irreversible and devastating disease? Comparison with Nigeria will show that there is no Konzo in Nigeria due to more adequate processing of cassava. This is maybe more a comment than a question. Esperance?
Mm-hmm. It's a comment, but it's also a question. And that's very good. What the Ministry of Health has done, we have introduced a new intervention, which is called the wetting method, to cut down the detoxifying process of cassava. Because in the old time, people will soak the cassava in the rivers or in water for about 2 to 3 days. But with this new wetting methods, so people will make flowers from the cassava cossette and then expose under the sun on a very thin layers. And after 2 hours, the cassava will be detoxified and will contain less cyanogen in the flour they will use to cook their ugali. So I guess in Nigeria, because they use proper detoxifying methods, and also because the diet is more balanced with proteins from animal source, the people are less likely to present with Konzo. Because what we have noticed also in the DRC, the Konzo appeared in area which were also affected by the civil war and people didn't have access to proper food. So it comes also, so there are multiple factors which can lead to the development of Konzo.
Understood.
It's a Yeah, I think Kira, you've put in the chat a link to the wetting method, did you? So I think you can find that there. This was developed by Carl Bradbury in Australia,
In
and
Australia,
unfortunately passed away about, I think, 7 years ago. And it's really very, very effective. And it's just to put in that gap between mixing the water and the flour with, putting that together and then just waiting before you actually do the final cooking means you can eliminate all the, not all, but a large amount of that. And so in combination with an improved diet, it's very effective. And I think, as someone has said, different countries use different methods, and maybe different methods at different times of the year too, depending on what, or whether it's dry or not. There's a couple of questions in the Q&A, so I'll come to one of those. Poasa Nanavulu from Fiji, who I know, is asking, are there sweet varieties that can be planted? So what do they plant sweet varieties in DRC, and what's the answer there?
Say it again, I didn't.
The sweet varieties. Yeah, so what are the sweet varieties? Do they plant sweet varieties in DRC, and what role do they play?
No, they don't know, no. And that's, I think Torkil was working on that, and he mentioned that the challenge is because the soil is very acidic and very dry. So it's not any type of cassava which can grow in the soil there. And so we have only one type of cassava, which is the bitter cassava.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, and that's another complication.
Another complication.
Here's a question in French, so I'll get Isabel to read that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will read that one, but in English because I've just translated. So, bonsoir, Espérance. I'm trying to make the
I can try to translate.
Yeah.
I can. She say, good evening, Espérance. Is there
Yes.
other method to eliminate the cyanide from the roots of the cassava outside from the one which is proposed by the GPC?
Oh, she's saying Global Plant Council, but it's really the Safe Cassava groups, yeah, and other public health measures. So what are the other methods that can be used for detoxifying cassava?
I know the two main ones I know is the wetting method, and I mean the local people used to have the soaking. They will soak the cassava roots in water, but I'm sure it's possible to find other methods, but those are the two main which are used in Kinshasa, in DRC. I don't know if other countries.
So there's another question. Cyanide's a defense mechanism by the plant. That's true. Could breeding approach to study the biosynthesis pathway to downregulate the genes producing toxins could be a long-term solution. We are, interestingly, hopefully the next seminar is going to be on this. There is a group from the US, Jess Lyons, been done, and they have done this. The various group, but also the group in Denmark have done this as well. So we'll have a seminar on that. Isabel, did you want to add anything else to that?
We will work to find a date.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And the next question I'll ask Espérance, but I can also comment on it, or somebody else online may also like to add something. From Primitiva Mamboyewa, what about the effect of soil fertility status? I think you mentioned that, Espérance, you have the acid soils, so that's the... So do you find that in the areas with these poor soils, you get more Konzo?
No, because probably they are more susceptible, like in Kayemba, the soil, as I mentioned, is very acidic. But in Eastern Congo, the soil is very rich. But when they had the drought and civil war, we started seeing very few, not as many as in Kayemba, but few cases of Konzo. So that's why I say, of course, the soil may contribute, but there are other factors. So we don't know exactly why. Oh, I'm so sorry. We don't know why some area of the country are more prone to develop Konzo than others. It's very multifactorial.
Yeah, I think Julie Cliff, who's online, she wrote that terrific review looking at the effects of poverty and war and so on. Just another question, just following up on bitter cassava. Why are the bitter varieties preferred? Some of them can, as Espérance has said, is because they are better adapted to certain soils. There's some work that we've been doing that, and Kira has been doing as well, indicates they may be better in recovering from drought. So that's still being tested, but they seem to have some improved environmental resilience. So that may be part of it.
Yes.
There's another question here in French from Floribert. I don't know if you can read that.
No.
In forested regions, en région forestière. Sorry, I typical dumb English speaker.
En région forestière, yeah. She's asking if Konzo exists in the northern part of Congo, which are forests. There are no cases which have been reported in Equateur and Province Orientale yet, no. But in Eastern Congo, there are few cases which have been reported.
Right, okay. There's some other questions about the plant breeding, and I think we don't have an expert online. There are people breeding for this, but there are problems with making less bitter cassava because there may be some environmental interactions. And I think it'll be interesting to listen to the next seminar in this series where we address that.
Yeah,
Someone here.
I think it was mentioned once that they appear to have less resistance.
Yeah, that we think it may affect their growth rate in early stages. It may not be a problem in later stages, but there does seem to be a preference for bitter varieties. And I think there will be a good reason for that, and that's why the focus really needs to be on processing in places with that. There's another question from Louisa Bayomi, who's also a member of the Safe Working Group, asking about the value of using grating. Do they grate the cassava there?
To grate?
To grate, cut it up very finely before they process it.
Yeah, they do, but mostly people will dry it and make a flour. They will pound it to make a flour. They don't grate it much. No, it's not. I mean, I know it some tribe or some people will do it, but it's not common. The most common way of using cassava is to make a flours and then cook the ugali out of it, or le fufu as they call it.
Yeah, and you soak it first. Is that the usual thing?
Yeah.
Peel it and soak it.
Yeah.
And then dry it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that will reduce some, but just not nearly enough.
No.
There's another question about the transgenes and gene edits. Yeah, they have been successful in eliminating cyanide production or the linamarin. There's two different pathways, and you have to knock them both out. As whether that's a viable option. For example, will they be suitable for these various soils? But it has been done, and I think it is promising and an important area of research. Someone is asking about the value of eating plant proteins. Do you think there is a particular need for animal proteins, or are plant proteins sufficient in the diet?
In the diet, I mean, the animal protein, as I mentioned, is very difficult to access. Animal protein, and even if they can, it's very expensive. People do have access to plant protein. We use only the beans and soya beans. So those are the one which can, and I know there are a group of there's another group in Congo who have tried to use the plant-based protein and see if it will improve the condition. But it's a very big challenge. As I mentioned, it is a very impoverished area. The access is close to impossible. And yeah, because people are so poor there, so they don't have access.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will give some of the example. When you go to do research, sometimes the people are so hungry that you have to help before you can even conduct the research. So those are the reality on the.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a question here about cassava purchased from the supermarkets, and is that safe to consume?
Yes, it is safe to consume cassava from the supermarket. Yeah.
Actually, well, it's interesting because we did a study. We've done two now of Australian supermarkets, and Leon Brimmer has done one in Denmark, and we actually sampled a whole lot of cassava samples in food in Australia, and we found that some of the cassava, like crisps, as we call them in the English, or chips, were over 200 parts per million. And some of them were extremely high, even though in Australia has legislation that they're supposed to be lower. So yeah, it's not well enough regulated that come in from certain places that are not processed. You can have very high levels. So it's something that I think in Australia we have legislation and we can go to the government and say, take this off the market, but no one is testing. Howard Bradbury used to go around and test it regularly, and I've done it a couple of times, but there's no one really regularly testing it. So you can't really be sure. I guess the most important thing is make sure you peel it.
Yeah.
Because people don't always know that.
And I remember also when we ask, when we are asked that questions, we say, if you have a balanced diet with animal proteins, source of proteins, your body will metabolize the excess. So even though you have high, but your body will be able to metabolize and it won't be toxic to a point where it will affect your nervous system or other component of your physiology, of your body, of your health.
In fact, I think that also answers a question that we got through YouTube. That it's a comment. It's more a comment, but I think you have already answered. The comment is, natives of the Amazon in Brazil and Peru have been consuming bitter cassava for centuries, with little to no cases of poisoning. It may be worth examining their methods and practices, and that's probably because of the whole nutrition.
The whole nutrition, yes. And in Congo, it's not all parts of Congo who have Konzo, and it's a staple food for the whole country. Everybody eats cassava and cassava leaves. With cassava leaves, and I saw there is a question here about boiling. When you boil cassava leaves, it's a detoxifying method for the leaves. Okay, so that's why, even that's one of the reasons also why we didn't measure the content in cassava leaves.
Yeah, because the leaves are very toxic if they're not treated.
If they are not treated, and you cannot eat them raw. You have to cook it, so you detoxify. And I will use this. This is in bracket just to say thank you to Australia, because we were able to measure the content because of the kits we received from Australia.
Oh, good, terrific. That's Jan Elliott. I don't know if she's online, but Jan makes these kits and she does them as a volunteer. So all the people out there who are using these kits, we need to have a big thank you to Jan for doing that at the Konzo group in ANU. There is a question here. There's Julie Cliff comments that also you can dry and ferment cassava in Mozambique. That's common. So thank you, Julie, for that. There's an interesting question here, I think, which is more on your specialty, is that what does the cyanogenic glycosides or the cyanide do to cause Konzo? So why does cyanide cause Konzo?
That's a very good question. And that we have probably to ask a biochemist who can answer. But definitely it will affect the nervous system. But how? That's a very good question. I don't know.
Julie, are you there? Do you know, and do you want to unmute and answer that question?
Julie Cliff?
Julie, if you're there.
I'm going to allow her to speak. if she wants.
And if you want to ask questions, please put them in the Q&A. Okay, over to you, Julie. Yes.
Yeah.
So could you can you explain how cyanide might cause Konzo?
And nobody has managed to show yet how it happens. They think it might be the thiocyanate module, not cyanate itself. But I haven't seen this research for a while. But if you look it up on the internet, you'll find different papers that have tried to show this. But none of them really came to a conclusion. And I think this is a sign of how the whole area is neglected. There hasn't been enough research to find this out. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's good. Who's going to go next? You or me? I think this one is quite, I can answer this. What's your specialty? So your specialty, Espérance, is neurodevelopment and psychiatry.
It's neuropsychiatry, neurology and psychiatry, but I'm working mostly on on psychiatry, but it's neurology and psychiatry. We call it neuropsychiatry in Congo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to come back to Charles Ologidi's comment, but I just wanted to ask you a question about your talk. So did you find when you did these mental health interventions that actually were the women more likely to do processing? Did that actually affect the whole food, or was this really to do with the development? Yeah, so please explain.
Yeah, what we notice is that women were more, they felt empowered. They were willing to use their daily activities with their kids. And as a result, it was very easier for them to use the wetting method. So probably, even though they knew about the wetting method, but because they were depressed, they didn't have enough. Now I'm just speculating, but we don't know. So they didn't have enough strength to go through the process of wetting method. But when we implement the intervention, it improves their mental well-being, it improves their relationship with their kids, the way they interact with the kids, and it helps also in using the wetting method in a more consistent way. So it was like a circle. Improve mental health from the mothers, improve child early neurodevelopment and cognition, improve wetting method. So
that's really, yeah.
So mothers are very, very important in that area. And most of the kids in Kahemba live with their mothers. They are the one who goes on the field. They are the main breadwinner of the families. So they are very strong women. And by empowering them, it brings a change in that community.
It's very important. So just to follow on that, really, I asked that question because Charles Ologidi asked what your specialty was and about can we have a multidisciplinary group to address Konzo from different perspectives. In answer to that, Charles, we have started that group. It started very informally about a year ago by me talking to Julie Cliff and a few other people from Mozambique particularly. And so we've set up this international Safe Cassava working group. What I think we need to do, I would love to do, is to get all these different perspectives together and hold an international symposium. I have looked into whether we could try and do something in Belgium next year. it's very expensive, of course, because if people are going to come in person from Africa, we're going to have to pay for people to come. And obviously, there's no other way. We had thought of going somewhere else. So if someone wants to organise it, that's great. Otherwise, we could have an online symposium that would go for a day and have all these different perspectives coming together. And that is, whatever we did would also be online, but that's important. In addition, there is the another option is that there's the International Crop Root and Tuber Crops Conference. I've just put it up there on the sharing in India next year, and that was also a possibility, but we've left it too late to have a cyanide and cassava session in that. We're nearly running out of time, aren't we? Louise has said, Bayami has a paper on soil and cyanide and cassava, and we'll share that when she publishes it. It's not out yet. Yes, the gene expression. I'll answer this one about the gene expression in the environment of the cassava. Does vary with environmental conditions. We've found this in other cyanogenic plants, so it is something to look at. Okay, so let's pick up, Isabel, if you've got some other questions, or Kira, that we should follow in particular to answer.
I see a question from a professor of veterinary medicine in Pakistan.
Oh, yes, do you want to answer that?
I think it's probably a comment. He said he works on cyanide antidote for acute and chronic toxicity with using garlic as an inexpensive effective to combat the chronic deleterious effect of cyanide. So he's asking if adding garlic in food may have protective effect against cyanide. Might be interesting to explore. Yeah, I can't say anything about that, but yeah.
Yeah, just interesting to explore. And one thing that garlic is known for is it's high in sulfur. And we know that sulfur is good. I mean, you need to have enough sulfur in the diet to make the thiocyanate. So there could really be something in this. Yeah. There's a lot of fantastic questions here.
And they keep coming.
Yeah. The cycad one, I can't answer that question. It is different because we're working on cycads as well. Peter, if you want to email me, I can fill you in on that, because we're doing a big project on cycad in Australian food at the moment. So Akeem, if you want to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A. Oh, sorry, Isabel, I interrupted.
No, I think I was interrupting you. So your comment about the cycad, it was for Peter Spencer?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, when I read the question by Peter Spencer about how the arbogenous population have managed to detoxify, and that's what also was done for years in Congo before. People will soak the cassava roots to detoxify, but with the instability, so they start shortening the time they will use to soak the cassava. And that's how they were exposed to improperly processed cassava and then develop the Konzo. It's a result of the fact that they are not processing cassava properly to detoxify from the cyanide.
Understood.
There's lots of good questions here. I'm just thinking we've come up to an hour, so we probably need to be finishing up now. We will, Kira, do you have any comments?
Not really, except I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wishes to get in touch, or I have access to the mailing list, so I can put people in contact if need be. So I'll put my email in the chat.
That's great. And just a couple of things that came in through the chat rather than the Q&A. there's actually a Q&A function you need to use. But someone's asking about a video on how to use the cyanide kit. There is detailed information, but I'm not sure that there are videos available. So Jan, if she's online, will be able to help us with that. But I do know that Bill Foley has developed a whole lot of videos in conjunction with some others in Congo, and they are in DRC and on the wetting method and the kits. So, or maybe not on the kits, but that's on that. So I think we can follow that up. I have made some videos on how to use the kits, so maybe I should make them public. There, I did them for my undergraduate students during lockdown. Akeem, did you have a question? Is it possible to type it into the Q&A? I know you've got one to ask.
Yes, Akeem, please use the Q&A tool or the chat for sending us your question.
So there's lots of great questions about gene expression, soil status. I think this shows, I'm going to wrap up now, this shows the multifaceted problem or the multifaceted issue that we have with Konzo and with this neurodevelopment and the need for these multidisciplinary approaches. One of these important approaches is clearly to understand not just the impacts on mental health, but how to empower women by improving their mental health to improve their processing and their interactions and development with their children. And Espérance, I think this is, to me, I have found this very, very revealing. It's something I hadn't, as a plant scientist, hadn't really thought about. And it's clearly, you can understand everything in the whole world, but if it doesn't actually connect with people, then you don't actually get anywhere. And I think this is incredibly valuable. So I would really like to thank you for your time. Thank you for making this presentation. Thank you for all of you who are online. Please get in touch. We're going to try and formalize the Safe Cassava working group in the next 6 months or so. At the moment, it's a bit ad hoc, but we'll work out something, and there will be another seminar in about 2 months. And in that, I'm hoping that we will do something on the genetics of cassava. So if we all want to just thank Espérance and Isabel for hosting, and for Kira for doing the logistics, and thank you all of you for attending.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.